It was a dark age for Alm. His Echo's alt application was stolen by the EVIL Celica. Seething with rage, he swore vengeance on the soulless ginger. 1 year had passed. Celica had fallen into obscurity and became homeless together with homeless Tiki. With almost nothing but the clothes on their back, she hopes to pawn Alm's royal sword.
Celica, I'm so hungry.
Don't worry, Tiki. As soon as we sell Alm's sword, we can get cheeseburgers. Is the coast clear? Do you see Alm anywhere?
I don't think so.
And what are you doing with my sword? Give it back here, Celica.
No! I can't! Tiki and I haven't eaten anything in 3 days! What just happened?
Stop it! You're killing her!
And so, the legend of Brave Alm was born. He reclaimed his sword, and the tales of him bludgeoning Celica to submission with his dong would be told for generations to come. As for Celica and Tiki, they continued to remain homeless, and eventually began wasting away. Celica's hair became increasingly dirty, while Tiki developed a terrible body odor. Tiki would become Stinky Tiki, and Celica would become Miriam.
What is up, everyone? It's your boy, Homeless Julia! I'm homeless because I decided to spend all my orbs on Sothis, and now I have none to spend on legendary Julia. So, anyway, today I'll be talking about this CYL stuff in talk show style, since you guys are right. I don't really like doing PowerPoint presentations, especially if I have a lot to talk about. Well, let's get to finally analyzing these CYL heroes. So let's start things off with our hero Alm himself. When I first saw him, I thought to myself, Scendscale, also known as Big Ass Dong. Interesting. So what this beautiful skill does is that it deals true damage based on Alm's attack. 25%. So that means every 4 attack Alm has, he deals 1 extra true damage. Now, true damage is no laughing matter. We can joke about Alm getting blue balls from not getting an ult for years, but when he finally busts out that dong, he will deal an insane amount of damage in a single hit, even through the toughest defenses. Now, he can do this for both player and enemy phase, but he definitely leans towards player phase. Speaking of which, the only sole weakness Scendscale has is that it occupies an A slot. So you can't share the gift of pain to range units on a counterattack. Bit of a shame, but that is the price one pays for excessive force, as we witnessed earlier. Now, it might sound like I'm exaggerating, but listen, alright, think about this for a second, okay? So if Alm's attack is like 60, or like 62 in the trailer, he'd deal 15 defense ignoring true damage. Now, what if you were to take Wadal from Carol or Large Eye Girl Athena? Alright, all of a sudden this true damage is raised to 25. Toss in a Wrath makes 35. Being an infantry sword actually helps Alm because now he can have something like, I don't know, Times Pulse to help him constantly dish out true damage. And that's one build he can try, yeah. Wrath Wadal, Times Pulse, and something like Moonbow. If he ever gets below threshold, he's going to be spamming 35 true damage skill shots each time. Now this is no laughing matter, because 35 is almost like 85% for most people. And that's before we count the damage from Moonbow or Glimmer. I would prefer Moonbow or Ruptured Sky for this, because anything that doesn't have a high enough defense will die anyway, and anything that does can wall arm that could wall arm off will suffer deeply from Moonbow. So true damage, Moonbow damage, you'll probably land a kill. But wait, That's not enough for you? Oh, well, I don't know. What if I'm using Draconic Aura instead? At, say, 62 attack, Alm will dish out 18 damage, and then you add the 15 from Scendscale, and without... Ooh! All of a sudden, that's 43 true damage. And if you want Wrath, that's 53, enough to down just about anyone. Weapon Triangle, 99 defense, what have you. Now, if you infantry pulse Alm beforehand and let him perform a Dragon Fang, well then, now the difference between a 18 damage Draconic Aura and a 31 Dragon Fang based on 62 attack is quite significant. So, with Wrath, you're looking at what? 66 true damage? No one will survive that. And Alm appears to have decent speed at 35, so even... decent speed. Back then, 35 isn't like massive. So even if you can't afford all those tools, you can still try doubling with like a heavy blade or flashing blade seal. I think most people would find having to deal with 15 true damage on top of his normal damage twice a rather daunting task. So any skill you put on top of it, it's really just a show of force. Now if you really feel like an awful person, then give this a try. Slap a brave sword on our boy and have him slap people with his dong, potentially 4 times in the face. He'll do the same true damage as his attack if you quad. And if you can't quad, you're looking at something like 30 true damage just from one exchange. And how can I forget? Just like any other true damage choices, AoE skills will also calculate this extra damage. So why not do a Penta Thrust with this big ass dong and permanently remove whatever opponent you face from the game? Just send them straight to the Shadow Realm. Now this is actually rather scary, and I'm pretty sure we can push Alm for more than just 62 attack, given his base attack of 38 with a super boon that goes up to 42. His Draco Falchion is also rather powerful. The activation requirement isn't all that tough, and you increase your stats by 5 on top of everything. That on top of that 3 attack that he also gets that built into his sword, he most likely won't even need that with all nonsense I showed you earlier. And of course, dragons might as well just curl into a hole and die. But if you have some desire to crush heavily armored blue units, well, you know, like how I did it with the Quam build of ages past, then you should consider Brave Sword or Wadal instead. Think of it like champions or monks in Ragnarok Online. Their famous Azure Fist, or Guillotine Fist if you're playing IRO, is this neutral defense ignoring attack that does heaps of damage. So unless your opponent starts using Ghost Ring card, this monstrous Alm build will decimate just about anything with his massive dong, the likes of which not even Luis can match in Dragalia Lost. Now, for the rest of his skills, he has Chill Dev on his B slot, which is sick for a massive damage dealer like that. Shutting down their top defense will make all of them easy prey for Alm's dong. Meanwhile, he gets threat and attack and speed 4 as a C slot. Now, you think about it like this new threaten is like Surtur's Menace, except only for attack and speed. An odd choice, because Alm is not exactly a tanky character. Physically, maybe, but against magic, he has nothing, so he can't just stand there for a turn. Dragon and mages being commonplace means he has no business trying a tanky strategy like that. Pity. I was hoping that the threat and attack speed 4 would be something like 3 or 4 range, like that of Gunthra's weapon, New Year's Gunthra's weapon, but oh well. On the other hand, most armor can make great use of this toy, since nowadays they all have strong dual defenses. You know, the whole thing that started with Sheena. Makes me sad because Sheena has its own unique niche that she had way back in the days, and now everybody does it. And they can now just use Worry Fighter to cover their weaker speed so they can be as tanky as they come. Now, this works double if they have a pref weapon that already negates follow-up. Meanwhile, infantry BST is so inflated these days you can be able to find plenty of good tanky examples from the infantry pool as well. However, when it comes down to it, I think buffing stats is easy. as is debuffing people nowadays. If you were to work in a team, I don't think Threaten is all that useful. If it had extra range, that'd be one thing. But since it doesn't, the souped up Threaten honestly just doesn't cut it for me. Now, as for Alm as a unit, I think that despite having 172 BST, it's really not that much different from his old 158 BST self. And that is because Alm is a battering ram character. Use him to completely break down something that is normally immovable with a touch of death. Afterwards, you should strive to get the fuck out as soon as possible. In terms of builds, I think you should strive to build one that you can either let him deal the maximum damage possible, or something that you give yourself a plan to escape once the deed is done. Either way, he'll be a player phase only character. Now, let me just tell you what some of my ideas are. So for something offensive, we can go with that Wadao or Brave Sword we talked about earlier. I recommend dishing out powerful blows before the opponent can even do anything. So something like Special Spyro or Moon Bow might actually be pretty decent. Run that with Infantry Pulse and you're dishing it out all the time. You could also try using getting Clawed and have them sacrifice for that speed and dev lull to weaken the enemy and prevent whatever buffs they have for speed and dev from affecting them. So you can hit them either really hard for 3 extra damage, and well, actually more if you remove their buffs, or you could double them. 3 speed is pretty significant. Or you could try this. You can take a page from Sothis and use Time's Pulse and Wrath. Take some damage, or trade damage, like from Ardent Sacrifice, or from an asshole like Berkut. Then you can simply blow your load when your HP's below like 75%, and have Selena Miku or something toss your ass backwards with a reposition afterwards. Then congratulate yourself for a job well done. Now, in situations where you need just that one extra space, something like Hit and Run or B slot would be most ideal. I've always liked that technique since 2017 with my air unit hordes. You come in on an enemy, bash their brains in, then quickly retreat, moving back 1 space into a nearby barst or something hiding in a bush, and then just shoot yourself at them like cash coming on an ATM, then have them toss you backwards. That extra space makes you about as good as a range unit, so that also keeps the reposition unit themselves out of danger as well. Still, as safe as that option is, you do sacrifice some damage for safety. Now, in my opinion, usually that's really not an issue, because Alm just hits so goddamn hard. I mean, like, what? 4 times 15? That's 60 damage right there. You don't even need a skill or anything. In most cases, you will rip someone to shreds. But I mean, like, there are some opponents that can wall him. You know, it's people these days have BST so high up the ass that they can do something like that. Now, on the same token, you could also try running Gale Force. Like I said, you don't really need skills as much anymore, so if you were to run Brave Sword, quad someone, since Alm gets an attack super boo, you already have 50 attack with a Brave Sword, you can do yourself a favor and get yourself a buff, then you have 56 attack, you can quad for, well, 56 true damage, whenever that's not resisted, and that's with him as a +0 unit. Then afterwards, you either quad someone else to death, or you can use that chance to move back to safety. The choice is yours. Quadra Lion lives even to this day. So in conclusion, tons of goddamn damage thanks to his dong. I had been dreaming of him getting his dong armor for the past year, and even had the art created by Sess-sama for this episode made well in advance. I apologize to Sess for my particular lack of motivation lately, but we can talk about that some other time. Now, next character. Let's go with the other first place. B Micaiah. B Micaiah stands for Basketball Micaiah, and her evil knows no bounds. Micaiah comes with a bag of tricks, from reverting penalties to armor, and cavalry crushing to inflicting penalties, and with Yune's whispers, and he just does a whole bunch of things. Reverting penalties, armor, cavalry crushing, yada 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 yada, and bonus stats from their penalties, from being flying and giving people ground orders, so they too can fly all over the place. Rambling aside, my opinion on the matter though, Yeah, I mean, she's versatile for sure, man. That the only cost to this is that she just has to penalize someone somehow. Say, oh, I don't know, someone gets affected by Yune's whispers, and all of a sudden her tomb suddenly has a 12 speed advantage because she suddenly gained stats and her opponent lost stats. And what's worse is that since these are in-combat buffs, she's still free to be buffed, and so you're looking at something stupid like 18 speed difference. Or more if you were to use bonus doubler or something like that. It can get pretty crazy. Now, although her speed is something like a paltry 28, this shoots her to basically 46. And that's no paltry sum. I can imagine a plus speed build to be actually pretty decent on her. Now, of course, that is if she meets these requirements. And funny thing as it is, she comes with something that negates said requirements. Like that, attack res bond for that allows her or anyone else who sacrifices her to be unaffected by penalties during combat as long as they're adjacent to someone. So as long as you don't use buffs and get panicked or something like that, the sharpness of your attack and res won't get dulled. And enemy Micaiah won't be able to take advantage of those stats either. That being said, it seems like these days just being adjacent to someone gets you penalized from something stupid like Yun's whisper, whatever, and Aversa. Now I won't be surprised if the full collection of Bond 4's skills will come to play eventually, along with some other skills that automatically turns penalty into bonuses, so you don't have to use it like a harsh command. Now, I mean, we already see Petra with that silly attack speed form thing. It looks like a conveyor belt with like 3 guys, which lets you gain the benefit of extra stats without being adjacent within 2 spaces. So it's only a matter of time until they release something to counter such tactics of affecting someone being adjacent to another, either through just something like Bond, which allows you to get benefit from being 2 spaces away, or something that counters it entirely. So, in my opinion, for her B slot, I think something evil, such as the previously discussed New Year's and Gunthra's 4-range threaten to be a more capable companion. Yune's Whisper is still very good, in that, it forces people to play somewhat differently. But if you're looking for something for sure, you should either ask Gunthra or Veronica or Saizo for help. That way you can use your B slot for something stupid like Special Spiral or one of the LOLs we just talked about. Now, well, there isn't anyone for Res yet, but I'm sure they'll release more down the near future. Finally, Ground Orders itself can be very useful, although it requires a unit to be adjacent to Micaiah for a full turn, making them susceptible to techniques from Aversa or herself. Now, this could lead to a situation where, when a unit is dispatched, they send out a defective unit instead. Now, luckily, Micaiah does have Sacrifice, so as long as your buddy isn't, like, panicked or something, with bonus stats, then you can ship him out after a Sacrifice, and just remove the penalty and turn him into bonuses. Now, personal opinion on Micaiah. I think that, while she is great, I think that she might just be a little bit overrated. Now, I mean, I certainly get the appeal. You debuff someone, and then turn her into a beat stick, and extra damage against the likes of armor and cavalry, which armored is somewhat common. I feel like infantry is starting to take over their place right now, and cavalry has always been kind of iffy ever since all those nerfs that they've given them. Air units and infantry I actually see a lot of. But anyway, so there's a certain danger when it comes to relying on debuffs, because, well, they can get cured or reversed. This is a trap that a lot of people who face me in Aether raids find out the hard way when my healers not only touch themselves all day with Restore and getting their miracles precasted ahead of time, but the worst trap of all is that if they were to, like, say, ensnare me with Tactic School or Loki, only to suddenly find that one move horse healer is moving 3 spaces instead, and whatever debuffs they have, gone, running them down before they're even prepared. Therefore, debuffs can be scary for you if you're not prepared to deal with someone countering it. Fortunately, if you apply at the beginning of your turn, you do have your player phase in which you can use those applied debuffs. But, well, moving on and attacking people on player phase carries some risk of its own. Now, on top of this, now that Micaiah has so graciously provided a new bond skill that negates penalties, I have a plan in mind to apply like a phalanx of 6 heavy defense infantry, like the likes of President Oboro, except now there are people who can probably do it better now. And all of them with attack and res bond to tank people to death. Now, the thing is, high defense unit is really easy to find. And infantry now has 173 BST because, I don't know, they think they're armor or something. With an utter lack of weaknesses as infantry and many powerful tools only available to them, like negate, counter, null this, null that. Infantry is the future. And until they get nerfed, for some whatever reason, or some other unit type gets a heavy buff, infantry is going to be really, really strong. So, I mean, like, I can't imagine something serious like armor did back in the day with all fighter this, fighter that. I can't imagine that happening again, because that was really crazy. Well, then again, we're dealing with IS, so they might just do something stupid that makes flyers or cavalry really strong or something like that. But I highly doubt it, because they're already strong to begin with, thanks to the movement types. But anyway, of course, we also mustn't forget what we just discussed, that one day they might just introduce some broken-ass penalty negating skill that doesn't require an activation, such as Harsh Command. Now, I'm sure of it. With debuffs that are on the rise like this, like, you're pretty much every character that you see, oh, there's a debuff here, there's a debuff there, oh, we're gonna negate bonuses, yada yada yada. I'm sure they'll try to incorporate something that counters penalties like this in the near future. That said, taking away the debuffs, and Micaiah really isn't all that scary. She's comparable to her original form. Now, in terms of debuffs, I also think that CYL might just do the whole debuff nonsense a little bit better, since his only requirement is that he has to attack, and with tools such as the twin sweeps, like wind and water, and the twin impact skills like sturdy and warding, for him to freely use, he really has nothing to fear. Now, next up on the CYL list, we have 2 rather bland units, and we have Eliwood and Bulbasaurus Rex. Now, I won't go into too much details about them. Now, Eliwood, unlike his legendary form, is just a dragon and beast slayer with a Nini spear. So, he does get some good stats if you were to initiate with them, but that's about it. I mean, although I'm a bit of a fan with regards to his attack and speed roost, I know we just talked about debuffs, but, you know, it's still a cool move to be able to shut down enemy skills without using a B slot of another unit. Still, healers will make you regret using this trick on the enemy phase. Now, being cavalry also takes away from him a little bit because of lowered BST, yada yada yada. If they have Kanto, like you see in Three Houses, that'd be pretty sick. They hit someone, move away. But, you know, at least he'll get to initiate more often being on a horse, unlike poor Alm, who actually has to move closer. Now, finally, we have Queen Bulbasaurus Rex, one of the blandest unit I have ever seen. But my god, is she strong as hell. Packing excessive heat in the form of attack and speed plus 3 on the weapon, or only just the weapon, and then 7 from attack speed push 4 is ridiculous. It's a completely broken ass A slot that healers can finally use and abuse, unlike that terrible attack and speed push 3. Oh god, that thing was terrible. 100% HP. Ugh. The EVIL Healers has just gained an extremely dangerous tool to play with. Well, just about any other units too, really. And considering that the only cost for its activation is, oh, you lose 5 HP and you just have to keep your HP above 25%, this is a non-issue for the 6 passive Pain Plus, especially when they touch each other. And now that old Eubert shows up with Hexblade, infantry healers now have the pleasure of targeting weaknesses as well. Still, alright, if we look past the stats, all Bulbasaurus Rex. All Camilla does is gravity, gravity, gravity. I mean, it's still a very powerful technique. It's easy to cheese, especially if you have someone tossing or dragging you backwards. But it's pretty much the same trick that any healers can do. Still, I suppose, being a flying healer, she does have a lot more leeway. She could be tossed into like lava and she'll just be floating over it and then everything is fine. Whereas infantry, they might get trapped due to terrain. But anyway, since we've gone through all the heroes just now, who would be the best as a free summon? Now, it might be a little bit late on my part, given how late this video is, but this is what I think would be best. So personally, as a healer specialist, I say Bulbasaurus Rex. Bulbasaurus Rex's attack power is off the chart. Camilla is crazy. Her colorless status means that she's more likely than not to deal with great damage, and she's so fast, she's actually surprisingly bulky. Although I'm not a fan of her always ignoring counterattack options that you would see on a staff, because it's just like how it is with Lushkov, the staff on Veronica. You are stuck using Wrathful staff on the B slot. You can't customize it so that it has Wrathful on that, and then you can use your B slot for something else. That said, still, she is a raw and powerful beat stick, so she could use that a lot better. And not to mention, with gravity, she can cause a lot of unnatural traffic jam after, well, killing an enemy, because she is much more likely to kill an enemy than, I don't know, some other healer with gravity, because healers have such poor stats. But now, this Bulbasaurus Rex comes in with some crazy-ass stats and just turns this whole thing upside down. And you know what? Traffic jam can most certainly help you solve free-to-play maps, solve maps as a free-to-play, if your units aren't getting hit. Just, God, watch out for restore, please, for the love of God. If you don't, you will die painfully. Well, I suppose it's fine as long as you're facing me in Aether Raids. I keep doing that. I love making videos of this. Now, as for Micaiah as a summon option, I think she too is quite strong. The dual effectiveness is always going to be great, but I'm also starting to get a bit worried. I mean, think about it. Guys are getting tankier. They're getting tankier and tankier, and you have things like Kangas carrying like range Dev 4 or something. I don't remember. Distant Defense 4. So you might run into a situation where the enemy can just tank her. Despite that effectiveness, they'll take like what, 20-something damage. That's fine. It's not a big deal at all. And she won't be able to double because she's kind of slow. And especially if your conditions are met, she's just really a slower mage with a sharp weakness in defense. She can't use her B slot if she wishes to debuff on her own, so she suffers from that problem, which is shared with Gunthra. And the ability to ground order can be a bit awkward to use from time to time, because you need to end your turn next to her. To which you might not always gain a benefit from it for one reason or another either. I mean, you still have to have some unit in the front to actually be able to take advantage of it. I mean, it's not that hard, but still, it could get awkward depending on terrain or some certain situations. Now, I think that ground order is a skill that is more suited to ruin someone's day on Aether Raids than it is more for convenience. I think that sometimes just a little bit of guidance is all you need. Still, with a nice bag of tricks, I believe that Micaiah can solve maps in more interesting ways, especially if you were to team up with something like Bulbasaurus Rex. You have a really seriously scary team. Gravity causes a pile up, and then the evil Micaiah debuffs them all. Although I suppose you could use something like Lissa too. Lissa is definitely free to play. You can get her from that stupid quest, those stupid daily quests like that. So, you could use her if you end up choosing Micaiah. Now, between the two, I would still say that Camilla, it probably is still a little bit better because she has some really reliable damage potential. And with, well, mostly no counterattacks, she'll be tough for her enemies to deal with as well. Simplicity is best. There's a reason why Veronica is so scary. It seems that some people may have forgotten. Now, Eliwood and Alm, unfortunately, are too melee player-faced for that sort of stuff. Now, without any means to seal an enemy movement after they perform their evil, they're just battering rams you take to remove certain types of obstacles. Beasts and dragons for Eliwood, Alm for pretty much everything. Now, as fodder goes, Alm is no good. Let's be honest with ourselves here, the threat is no good. Eliwood is pretty awesome, Micaiah is amazing, and so is Camilla. Now, if you were to plan well, you can try grabbing multiple skills off these guys, since they all have like level 4 skills. So you can get, if you already have a level 3 skill, you can get that one, and then you have 3 more to get for something else. Now, it's a bit tough to say who specifically should be father if you can only pick one. But gauging from power to trickery, Eliwood has the most balance. Although Camilla does have dual phase attack and speed, which is pretty scary stuff on an A slot, and Micaiah as a fodder is also really nice if you have some tricky evil plans, like I mentioned earlier, involving attack respawn, to ironically counter Micaiah herself, or something with the ground orders. But yeah, that's pretty much it about CYL. I mean, listen, to be perfectly honest, the CYL just isn't as exciting as the others, especially compared to the first one, where we had that cheesy live-action movie. I mean, it was cheesy as hell, but it was awesome. It showed effort. It was live action. It was cool. I loved it. Even though, yeah, the hair color needs work. But anyway, maybe it's, I don't know, series fatigue or just something. It just doesn't feel quite the same. And thus why things for me has slowed down a bit, and I don't really make videos for Fire Emblem Heroes all that much. Well, that and heavy work schedule also helped a lot in that regard. But as long as I haven't quit completely, I'll still put out some nonsense from time to time. Once again, I apologize for being late with this video. I thank you all for watching. Until next time.